We're here, final day of Eurogamer. We're here with Lorne and Stewart to talk about the Oddworld HD update, the Abe's Oddysee that we've just seen, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. You're going on stage in about 20 minutes, 15 minutes to show it off to everyone else in the world. Lorne, how does it feel to sort of hand your baby over to other people and have them working on it?
You know, if they're making it better, it's a fabulous thing, right? And I think this team, the Jaw team, proved that, particularly with Stranger HD. And so the thing that I love is this is really sort of the remakes that fans would do, because they bring that same sort of love and integrity and sincerity to the brand that the original crew had. And so it's a wonderful thing, you know. And when it comes to the new Abe, it's HD is what people have talked about it so far. It's really a brand new 3D from the ground up, as you're seeing, you know. So it's and the new name is Abe's Oddysee New and Tasty. And the fan community named it. We had a little competition, and they named it, and came back with fabulous possibilities. But New and Tasty seemed perfect, because in the original game, New and Tasty was sort of the deadly end of Abe, you know, and this is really a rebirth of Abe. So New and Tasty seemed just perfectly appropriate.
I love that as a name. It's very cool. And like you say, no, it's a complete update. Stuart, how did you find it, sort of going with that update, but also trying to stick to the original concept of the game and the aesthetics?
As Lorne said, you know, first and foremost, I am a fan. You know, I've played these games for 15 years when they first came out in September '97, and I've been bugging. I mean, it came about because I've been bugging a friend of Lorne and mine to bug Lorne to remake this, and he's going, "All right, well, doesn't want to do it. Doesn't want to do it." And then we got talking in 2009, I think it was, and then all along the way we eventually started doing Stranger, and at the same time I was going, Abe, and that's where it came from. And the first and foremost thing to me was two things. One is to stick to the original gameplay, 2D gameplay. So that has not changed and will not change at all. The gameplay is as was in terms of it's a 2D game, platform game. The second thing was I always like gutted that those environments in the backgrounds didn't do more. I mean, the example I give this sort of thing is Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer is a fairly run-of-the-mill race around the course game, but you've got all the things going off in the background when you're racing, which don't attract or do anything to gameplay, but they're there and just add something to the atmosphere of the game. So with Abe, doing this, what we're doing now, it's bringing those backgrounds to life. And the first bit you saw near the start when you go through the first door, where original game you had a small, tiny square of animating barrels. Now you've got 4 huge conveyor belts taking barrels in every way, shape across the background vista, and that's the kind of thing I want to do, is to bring life to those backgrounds, and that's what we're doing. You know, the game's the same, but those backgrounds are now living.
But you know, but I personally, you know, based on what I'm seeing and being at the studio, you're selling yourself a little short, because they're doing a lot more than just a background, right? Yeah. And what they're focusing on, which is what makes it very exciting to me, what I call neo-nostalgia. What we're looking at is a real, authentic approach to neo-nostalgia, which is how do they take the, you know, if we were listening to our audience, right? Our audience is saying, we want more Abe in the classic style. And we said, well, okay, but how do we surprise you with that? How do we take that to another dimension? How do we, you know, push the abilities of newer technology and yet retain the simplicity of a platformer play without, you know, dealing with all of the things that 3D gaming introduced, and yet really amplify the 3D nature of it while being, I mean, as they were sending me, while being true to the original, you know, idea, right? And as they were sending me screenshots, they were kind of surreal, because they were just a perfectly perpendicular, you know, locked off flat screens, but it was really high resolution, and now there's, you know, shadows casting and all this stuff, but it was clearly Abe's Oddysee, you know, and that was kind of exciting. Then seeing how far they had come being here and seeing what they're doing with it, that's where I think neo-nostalgia is really appropriate, because they're tasked with, and they're bringing to it, sort of taking, I think, what was the best of what was there and really enhancing it. While Stranger HD was a later product, we had learned a lot as designers, fully 3D. What they did with that, I think, is a good example of how they took Stranger and turned it into Stranger HD, added difficulty level, added a lot of things that made a much better, improved game experience for users. They're doing the same with this and more. So it's pretty exciting, and when you know that you can trust that you know, and sitting at the studio the other night, and people were there till 1 a.m. getting ready for this show, and seeing the passion that people were bringing, and you know that you have a team that cares about the content. They're not just trying to get a product done, but they're trying to get something they're proud of done, and that alleviates most of the stress you would normally have, and sort of, you know, delegating that. And what we're really dealing with today is we're dealing with a new model, right? I mean, we have a disrupted landscape. Right, and if, you know, 10 years ago you said, what is gaming? We all knew what that was. Today we don't even know what that really is, right?
I mean, you've got iPhones, Android, etc., everything out there just changing how the way gaming is going forward.
Absolutely. And we have the gamification of real life. We have the social gaming. You know, we have all this stuff changing. And but yet, at the same time, you know, something that we were about trying to be more of a Pink Floyd than a boy band, right? We had content we wanted to talk about. I didn't make games because I wanted to have expensive cars. I made games because there was things I just needed to talk about as an artist, and that's really what I am, right? As I was an artist, I was trained that way, I think that way. And when I look at life, I look at it more like Roger Waters does than Britney Spears does, right? And there's, you know, no disrespect to any development community, but there's a lot of Britney Spears out there.
Yeah.
And this is a medium, the pop of pop mediums has a fabulous potential to take it and have it offer more nutritious, psychic, you know, spiritual value to the user base. And I think that's something that has helped the longevity of the fan base. I mean, it's incredible. We were just looking at brand new tattoos of Abe on people, you know, and it was released 15 years ago. And I didn't expect that, nor did I expect the digital landscape to sort of, or Sony to provide PSX emulators on the PS3, which really puts it more in like a music category, right? If I loved Pink Floyd or The Doors, it doesn't matter what new device is out there, I can go buy it, right? Because it's the content that's important. And finally, we're getting past, are you taking advantage of our new chip? And if you're not, you can't be on this console, right? We're getting past all that because what people really care about is games, great content. And it's not the latest 3D bell and whistle. There'll always be an audience that wants to exploit that, you know, makes that exciting. But not at the expense of all the other possibilities. And so what we have today, what this relationship is truly a micro publisher, because that's what we are. If you see it coming from us, we're paying for it, right? Quite literally, as no one else is funding this stuff. And so in that relationship, the agreement, the deal is that the profit that can be made on this goes into the bank to fund new projects. Right? They're not funding Ferraris and gas for the G5, right? It's about new content. And how can we, because we're a micro publisher, which is we're only publishing ourselves right now, and it wouldn't have been possible pre-digital landscape, because of that, we're able to look at each risk and step it up. So if we said the first risk is just seeing how the Oddbox might do on Steam, and then eventually the PS3, right? And that was a risk, and it actually did quite well. Well enough to say, what can we do with Stranger HD? You know, what love can we bring to that? At what price point? And instead of relying on needing to sell, you know, 1.7 million units week one or we're dead, right? We can say if we sell 50,000 units week one, everyone still has a job, and we get to keep making games. So it's really, Oddworld was always about sustainability in its content, right? A lack of a sustainable world. Because really, when we looked at the world, and this is what I felt, we're screwed. We got big problems. Now, today, those problems are more obvious to everyone. When I first started making this stuff, people were like, you're anti-capitalist. And I couldn't say, yeah, you're right, but they were, right? Because everyone thought it was still a good thing. You know, I knew other things were going on, and we had big problems that we have to start dealing with, and that inspired the content. So as a micro publisher, taking risks, with each success, we're able to take larger risks. And with the agreement, it's truly like sustainable farming, you know? And it's more like sharecropping than serfdom, right? So if we prosper, the fans will prosper. And the real stroke of luck that we have is that Oddworld was a globally recognized brand. And because of that, and because we have a fan base, as long as we don't try to exploit the dollars out of that fan base in cheap ways, you know, not that anyone else does, but you know, as long as we don't, then if we can keep that fan base happy, then we should be able to keep growing that fan base and reigniting it. And that's what's been happening, and that's what Jaw's been really helping to enable. And if we do that well, then we will get to the point where we can start funding our own $20, $30 million AAA new titles from Oddworld without having any masters to answer to. So we can get more into the content that we want to talk about, and that I think will make it stand out more and more and more from basically the corporate content. Because this is very anti-corporate content. you know, in a micro publisher developer relationship model. So it's kind of like sustainable farming, you know. Can we grow it? Can we grow the audience together? Can we make the people like yourself happy? Because really you are our marketing budgets, right? We don't have $5 million for an advertising campaign. We have to rely on word of mouth, the press, and the journalists that are online, and the fans. And if we blow that, we've shot ourselves in the head. Right.
I think you've got quite an easy sell there. Sort of, you're making games that look great, and if it's a suit like, I mean, you guys have obviously done a lot of effort to keep it like the original ones, and to draw on that. And the originals were great, so these are going to be good.
Yeah, we're fans. If we weren't fans, we wouldn't be able to do this. You know, we're not about buying new cars. So we're not there to milk it for all it's worth. We're there to do the job that we want to do and play games we want to play. So yeah.
And Lorne, how does it feel to sort of, like you're saying, having that fan base reignite? Did you think all those years ago that you'd still be doing this now, that it would still be coming back in?
Well, I thought that I would be able to keep on the AAA train, you know. But what happened, and it's an industry thing. What happened, you know, is just that I didn't expect that games were going to start costing, you know, $30 and $40 million. And when that starts happening, something else happens, which is this. Out of all the game designers that you're aware of today, how many are working on titles that you're aware of? That is the common response. Right? You have to think about it. Right? There's a reason for that, because all the incentives have been lost. And so we basically have, in the AAA landscape, is corporate games, committee games, you know. But we're not having Pink Floyd games, right? Go. Oh.
Yeah. See, I was just thinking. Lorne, Stewart, thanks very much for talking to us.